Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down fascinating sources. Today, we're digging into the ancient Pali texts to explore some pretty intense encounters the Buddha had with these mysterious beings called Yakkhas.
So, what exactly is a Yakkha? You know, when you hear the word spirit, your mind probably jumps straight to something like a ghost or a demon, right? But in these stories, they are so much more complex. Are they terrifying monsters, powerful protectors, or are they seekers of truth, kind of like us? Let's get into it.
All right, first up, let's set the scene. Who exactly were these beings in the world of the Buddha? The first thing to get is that Yakkha isn't just one type of creature. It's more of a catch-all term for a whole class of powerful nature spirits. They were tied to the wild places, forests, mountains, you name it. And their personalities were all over the place, from incredibly hostile to surprisingly kind and helpful.
Okay, so let's jump into the most dramatic part. These raw confrontations where Yakkhas really put the Buddha's unshakable calm to the test.
So picture this. The Buddha is meditating, and this fierce spirit, Suciloma, just appears right in his personal space. And he gets straight to the point, asking this one really chilling question. Are you afraid of me, ascetic? And what's so wild here is the contrast. It's just night and day. The Yakkha makes these huge, violent threats. I'll shatter your mind, I'll split your heart. But the Buddha, he's completely unfazed. He actually calls the Yakkha friend and turns this whole terrifying threat into an invitation to talk. And then you get this encounter with the Yakkha named Alavaka. And this one is just weird. He starts ordering the Buddha in and out of his home over and over, like some kind of strange power trip. And the Buddha, he just calmly goes along with it 3 times, but the 4th time, the Buddha basically says, nope, I'm not playing anymore. Do what you're going to do. And this is where things get really interesting, because after all the intimidation fails, these Yakkhas start to reveal what's really going on. They've got some seriously deep questions. So get this. Suciloma, the very same Yakkha who was just threatening to, split the Buddha's heart, turns around and asks this. It's one of the most fundamental questions in all of Buddhism. Where do greed and hatred actually come from? Where does all that suffering start?
And the Buddha's answer just gets right to the heart of a core teaching. He explains that all these powerful emotions, greed, aversion, even terror, they don't come from some external monster. They arise from within us. They're born from the self, from our own attachments and all the endless chatter in our own minds.
All right, so then you have another Yakkha, Indica, who just completely switches gears. He's not asking about psychology or philosophy, he's asking about biology. He basically wants to know, how is a human body actually formed? And what the Buddha says next is, well, it's pretty remarkable. He lays out the step-by-step process of how an embryo develops. From a tiny drop to a bubble, then a lump of flesh that becomes a solid mass, and only then do the limbs appear. It's this surprisingly detailed sequence showing an ancient understanding of how life takes shape.
And hey, remember Alavaka, the one playing that weird in-and-out game? Well, after his attempt to intimidate the Buddha failed, he also starts asking questions. But his are all about how to live a good life. And every single one of the Buddha's answers points inward. True wealth isn't money, it's faith. Real happiness comes from the truth. The best life is a life of wisdom.
So we've seen them as these intimidating challengers, and we've seen them as deep philosophical questioners. But there's a third role they play, and it's honestly the most surprising. They show up as guides, and even as devoted fans. Okay, check out this story about a man named Sudatta. He's a wealthy guy, and he is so excited to finally meet the Buddha that he sets out before dawn. But as he's walking alone through this really creepy charnel ground, the darkness just gets to him, and he is overcome with pure terror. He's about to turn back,
and then, out of nowhere, a voice. It's an unseen Yakkha named Sivaka. And this voice, it's not threatening at all, it's encouraging. He tells Sudatta to keep going, saying that moving forward on his path is so much better than retreating into fear.
And just like that, hearing those words, Sudatta's fear just evaporates. The light seems to return, and he keeps going and meets the Buddha. I mean, think about that. A spirit of the wilds became his spiritual guide at this incredibly crucial moment.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing. You see it again and again. In some stories, Yakkhas are huge fans. One literally shouts praises for a nun after a brilliant lecture. Another mother hushes her kids so they can both listen to a monk, hoping it's their way out of their current life. And another Yakka mother tells her child that hearing the truth is more precious than her own family, because it's the only real escape from suffering.
Okay, so we've seen all these different sides to the Yakkhas, the challenger, the seeker, the supporter. What's the big takeaway here? What do these stories really tell us?
The big idea, really, is that wisdom isn't some exclusive club for humans. These stories show that any being, even a powerful, fearsome, non-human spirit, can ask the deepest questions, recognize the truth when they hear it, and be completely transformed by it. You can actually map their journey out. So many of them start right here, with hostility and confrontation. But when that aggression is met with calm, it shifts to genuine curiosity, to inquiry. And that questioning, more often than not, leads to a real admiration for the wisdom they find. It's a total arc of transformation.
And that's really the lesson for us, right? These stories are basically a metaphor. They teach us that any challenge, whether it feels like it's coming from an external monster or from our own internal fears, can be an opportunity. If we can meet it with calm and an open mind, even the scariest thing can become a doorway to understanding. So you have Suchaloma, Alavaka, Indica, all these powerful wild spirits, and they're all seeking answers to the biggest questions about life, suffering, and happiness. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. They asked their questions. So what are the questions that are driving you?